Eagle 6 in the twin.
Roger.
Viper 1 bombs away. One's going to climb high above 20. You're south.
Eagle 6 radar contact. Eagle 6 is visual.
And it goes left.
Hello and welcome back to the DCS SITREP, the show dedicated to in-depth news about all things DCS World, which is the world's premier combat flight simulator for the home PC. The game is brought to you by Eagle Dynamics, and I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog. Let's dig into this week's news cycle, which brought some sad news in terms of the June patch delay, Enigma stepping down from managing his very popular Cold War server, a public announcement on the RAZBAM thing, and a whopping summer sale featuring all kinds of crazy savings. Let's begin though with the newsletter from ED, which revealed some good news, but also a minor delay to the planned patch that was scheduled for June 26th this month, obviously. That patch was slated to also inject several new items into the game, and I was really looking forward to seeing the Afghanistan map and also the Chinook. It would also have plugged in Baltic Dragon's Gambler campaign and a big update for the South Atlantic map. The good news is that the delay is only about a week or so, and it has been pushed back to July 3rd. So what's the hold up? And I'll give you a clue. It has nothing to do with RAZBAM before the conspiracy theorists jump on board here. Now, according to ED's blurb, they described that after careful evaluation and due to some stopper bugs, these are important bugs that they can't ignore, they've decided to delay the launch of the Chinook until the 3rd of July, and of course that includes the Afghanistan map as well, which was kind of bundled in with this helicopter. So they apologize for the inconvenience and they want to thank us for their patience, and I guess that's why the sale is so good as well. Now, in simple terms, there are some kinks to iron out in this patch, with the aircraft prohibiting them from safely launching it into the public environment. Too buggy, it's going to cause some crashes, that's going to frustrate the community. And there's a lot of frustration in the community right now unrelated to this aircraft and the Afghanistan map. They went on to describe in detail the following early access features that we're going to have from the Chinook, which I think are worth covering. So they're preparing, they say, to launch both the Chinook into early access and also the Afghanistan map. Much of the remaining work focuses on the cargo carrying functions for the helicopter, the damage model, the flight control systems, and the avionics. So we've still got some things that are not going to be complete. Often people get excited about the damage model, so that's not going to be perfect, unfortunately, on early access. But not surprising. They're also working on the countermeasure systems, the door gunners, and furthermore, they're pleased to introduce new pilot models that will enhance the visual authenticity of the cockpit experience. That's particularly cool in VR, and people have mixed reactions to this. Maybe they should have spent their energies elsewhere, but nonetheless, anything that it improves the immersion experience maybe, or the visual experience certainly, is always fun to see. And I'm looking forward to seeing the work in this area, because I want to see pilots being able to wander around the helicopter initially pre-flight. I think that would be cool. And also we're hoping to see in the future ground crew for the land-based missions and startup procedures, etc., etc. That stuff is starting to creep into the game. We're not quite there yet, and it has been discussed in the past. I know ED are working on it, but we're not there yet. Now, based on the results from recent internal and external testing, as I said, they've decided to move it back to the 3rd of July. The good news is that you can still take advantage of the 30% off pre-order discount. That's going to stay valid until launch, and that also includes the Afghanistan map as well, which is also 30% off for pre-order. So don't miss out on that if you're interested in either of those products. Remember that the Afghanistan map can also be purchased in sections, and it will be released in sections as well. And that whole thing was a discussion in its own right several weeks back, and I'm not going to dip into that again, but ED's trying stuff, all right, to help mitigate some of the expense of all of the modules that we've seen launched this year in 2024. It's a bumper year. It's become an expensive one for a lot of us. Let's have a look at the early access features. What they say here is we're going to get a highly detailed external and internal modeling, including the cockpit and the cargo hold. They have the ability here to load and unload cargo from the internal bay based on weight and volume, which is really cool. And that was something that they were working on for both the Chinook, and it was also going to be something that was part of the C-130 development as well. New developmental systems there. We're hoping to see in the future, I believe, troops being able to load and unload from that as well. So stay tuned for that. Right now, single point sling loading is the only way to load under the aircraft cargo, but they have said that there will be a 3-point system coming up, which is going to be in the post-early access version. They say here we're going to have unmatched helicopter flight dynamics that only DCS can provide. There is a basic trim system and AI helper. We haven't seen a lot about what that AI is going to look like. We have a fully interactive VR-ready cockpit, which I'm really excited about. Highly detailed pilots and animations, neat. 6 degrees of freedom, highly detailed cockpits and external model. Fully clickable cockpits with mouse interactive controls. AI side gunners equipped with the M60D machine guns, so we're going to have to wait for the miniguns, I guess, down the line here. High-level multifunction displays, or MFDs, and subpages with ability to build flight plans in flight. Cool. Radar warning receiver, or RWR, and pilot-controlled countermeasure dispense system with chaff and flares. There's an integrated ARC 186 radio with voice chat, US Army paint schemes, and early access manual. They didn't tell us what paint schemes we're going to get. So, down the line, after early access, again, no timeline here for when all of this is going to be implemented and in what order. We have the DAFCS trim system and force trim. We've seen force trim in the Kiowa being functional. The multi-crew, a second crew member can be another player or the AI, neat. Flight engineer functionality on different stations, gunner on the ramp, different machine gun models to side and ramp gunners, night vision goggles, heads-up display system, missile warning system, or MWS, completed MFD pages, multi-point sling loading, which I mentioned before, engine fire extinguishers and EAPS system. I'm not sure what EAPS system is off the top of my head. Extended range fuel system, autopilot hold modes, more paint schemes, training missions, additional missions, and full manual. Now, as I said last week, I'm not sure if any content creators like myself are going to get their hands on this module ahead of time. We were advised that that wasn't going to happen. Disappointingly, although in fairness, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, to be honest, to have access to some of these aircraft and then being allowed to do videos on it, because while it's cool to showcase some features, oftentimes you end up also the target for vitriolic abuse. Why did you get access to it? If you're allowed access to it, then it must be available and we should be allowed to. Or you end up showcasing something you accidentally missed, like a switch during startup, and people abuse you for that. Or there's a bug and you end up showcasing that and you didn't know about it, and you end up with more vitriolic abuse from the community. And so you come away sometimes with a bad taste in your mouth for all the hours you spent learning to fly the aircraft, record and edit for hours often as a very simple video, and all you get is a whole lot of assholes. So, like you, I'm happy to wait until July 3rd, and we'll see what it looks like. I'm very curious about, and it's something that we haven't really seen a whole lot in the mentions from ED, and that is the AI helper and what that's going to mean, how that functions, etc., what it looks like. They've lumped that together with the basic trim system. So as I said before, the force trim system isn't implemented in early access. Remember, this is a big helicopter. It requires a crew of 3, so 2 pilots and an engineer. Similar to what we see in the Mi-8. Sounds like it might be a little bit more involved, but the concept itself isn't necessarily new then for DCS, but I'm curious to see what those AI assists look like and how they function. If they do the highly animated cockpit crew, then it should look a little bit more realistic and busy in there. So that's kind of good news. It won't need to be as complex as some of the other systems we have in game, like George or Petrovich, since the aircraft doesn't wield complex weapon systems. And unlike the Apache, it doesn't have a sophisticated sensor suite on top of that as well to deploy those weapons. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how it's modeled, what it looks like, and how functional it is. We've already seen that simple AI, if you like, for the Kiowa, which is very, very good. And Casmo said it was one of the best AI flight systems he had seen in game this far. So a really decent plug there. Now, the other takeaway I'm really excited about, and that is the fully VR-ready cockpit that they mentioned, which, as described, is going to be fully interactive. Now, VR really is becoming an increasingly attractive option for DCS World, and certainly has blown me away in terms of the visual experience and improved immersion. The challenges workability and setup regarding practical application, because you're blind in the real world to your control systems, and that's being overcome by improved pass-through systems and other control setups. I definitely can't go back to DCS in a 2D environment, except maybe for recording cinematic stuff and other things I might be recording, but I'm very pleased to see ED go down this road with a vision for VR, and July 3rd isn't too far away and around the corner. Pimax is actually sending me another headset this week, hopefully, so that's going to be fun to try out, and maybe we can plug that into the new Afghanistan map and the Chinook and see how that runs. This will be the Pimax Crystal Light, so it doesn't feature things like the eye tracking that I have with the main Crystal system, and we'll see if it runs a little bit better. I do get some, probably seen this in my video, with the eye tracking and quick head movement, there is a little bit of blurriness during the recordings. I don't see that in the headset itself, but in the recording process, there is a little bit of distortion, if you like, as the rendering catches up to the movements of the head and the eyes. So I'm interested to see if the Crystal Light doesn't have that. So lots of little subtle nuanced stuff that goes on with the implementation of VR, which is always in a state of flux as you get to grips with it. Once you get it set up and it's working relatively well, it's really cool, but then you sometimes find other things that crop up, like for example recording, and being a content creator is always a hazard too. You're always looking to record stuff, get more material, and sometimes you don't quite get what you want, and when you're visually looking at it through the headset, what's recorded doesn't necessarily match exactly your experience. Now, continuing with the theme of helicopters, Eddie plugged a new campaign which is coming to DCS for the Apache. It's known as the 4 Horsemen campaign. This is a series of 12 missions based on real-world events in Syria. So you'll be part of 644 Squadron, known as Ugly Flight, and you'll operate as part of Operation Shader. The campaign offers 2,500 lines of dialogue from voice actors and more than 1,500 triggers, all designed to give you that realistic feel of attack helicopter operations and work in a hostile environment. So keep your eyes open for that campaign coming here soon to DCS World. That sounds pretty interesting and a little enticing, I'm not going to lie. It's a cool blurb.
Copy all. And confirmed, there will not be any Link 60 picture.
Now, big news. Don't miss the DCS Summer Sale. That started on the 20th of this month. It's going to run through to July 14th on the eShop. It will run from June 27th to July 11th on Steam, so a slightly different sale system there. Remember, this is your chance to expand your DCS collection with significant discounts on aircrafts, helicopters, terrains, and campaigns. A couple of highlights that I noted that I think are worth plugging. One is that the Tomcat is currently 40% off. It seldom goes on sale. Heat Blue obviously put a lot of work into that aircraft. It normally retails for about $80. So that's a significant saving on a fantastic aircraft. Worth picking up if you like Heat Blue's products. If you happen to pick up the Phantom but you don't own the Tomcat, worth picking that up to embellish your Heat Blue aircraft. 50% off the A10C2, the tank killer. That's an outstanding module, I must say. If you love the Warthog and you don't own the A10C2, I thoroughly recommend it. It's a lot of learning, no question, but it's a fabulous ground attack aircraft. Definitely one of my favorites, and I don't spend enough time in the cockpit. Too many other aircraft I have to fly, but it's a whole game in itself because it's so involved, and it is absolutely fantastic. There's nothing better than that as a ground-pounding machine. Now, there's a big swag of World War II birds that are 50% off right now. I think that includes the Spitfire and also the Mosquito. There's 50% off the Hind and 30% off the Apache. Again, a big chunk of change. Bundle that in with a module, or if you want to pick up the Apache and pick up some of the new campaigns that we just talked about. I know Baltic Dragon in the future is working on a campaign with Casmo, I believe. So lots of things to look forward to if you pick up a module like that, and then you can embellish it later down the track with campaign or whatever else it is that you want to use it with, say a map. Like I said, it's a good time to kind of bundle these things together. Now, what's not on sale? The RAZBAM aircraft. The Phantom II, which is obviously brand new, was already previously discounted as part of its pre-access sale. The Mirage F1 from Argus, And as I said, none of the RAZBAM products.
Magic, Lisa 41, review, checking in, copy all established holdings. Copy that, established holdings.
None of the RAZBAM products, he says. Here we go. Must be symptomatic of some sort of ED conspiracy. Clearly, it's a money grab on all the other stuff. There's ED files for bankruptcy and insolvency. Oh, and oh my god, none of the RAZBAM products were showcased in the summer sale video. That's a sign too. As the community gets fired up again on this issue and on the prior to that. So this was the sale video that just sparked a whole lot of discussion. I really was hoping to avoid going down this rabbit hole again, but it just won't die. It just doesn't stop. Now, earlier this week, to kind of clarify the position of ED, Nine Line and Big Nui took the brave step of posting in the forum section an update basically saying there's nothing new to report on the RAZBAM ED issue. Or thing, as I'm calling it, the RAZBAM thing. At least nothing that they could publicly say without some sort of legal authorization. They wanted to dispel some of the myths and rumors and things that were festering into fact, if you like. But the challenge is that the community has been whipped in some quarters into such a frenzy that there's a lot of people that can't see fact from fiction. And I think in part it's been caused by certain videos that we already talked about that retuned the focus on the issue, even though there was really no new information or tangible proof to support some of the projected theories. I get it, Enigma was trying to not spark necessarily controversy, but it was a dangerous mechanism for promoting discussion because it just really got people fired up about the issue. I don't think that was his intent. I hope that wasn't his intent. We'll take it as good faith. He's done a lot to the community, and while we're on that note, I mentioned before that he has probably single-handedly helped promote the Cold War theater of operations in DCS world as a truly viable form of online interplay. That's been his big thing. He's done a tremendous job in doing that, so I'm not going to shit on the guy in any way. And sadly, he said he's walked away from just managing that. He cited basically work commitments, life commitments, and getting in the way. And managing a server and managing a Discord is almost a full-time job. He was able to do it during COVID because he was working from home, but now he said, yeah, going back to work and trying to do this and my job is impossible. The good news is that Heatblur has very, very kindly decided to take over control of the server or the managing of the server, so it won't disappear as an outlet for many of you who enjoy Cold War operations, and I'm really excited about that. It's a smart move by Heatblur. They have the right products. They have the impetus. I think it's a sign of them expanding a little bit as a franchise, and it's going to be interesting to see how they use their products, use their knowledge, use their very capable and creative mechanisms for producing exciting products in DCS world, how they use this platform to continue to do that. So stay tuned for more information on that. I think it's an exciting one. Now, getting back to the elephant in the room again, as I said, Enigma started, somebody else jumped on the bandwagon and sensationalized a lot of stuff. So Nine Line and Big Nui have come out with a statement. And as I said, the community's been whipped up into this frenzy in part because of those videos and in part because of the silence from the respected sources, ED and RAZBAM, which is leading to a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of concerns, a lot of unanswered questions about the module's long-term viability that RAZBAM has. And then any issues now that are cropping up with the modules is leading to more speculation and a plethora of causality theories, time bombs in the code, other speculation, and just ultimately, too, a lot of flat-out nastiness in the various online outlets. And it's gotten so bad that ED actually disabled the comment section on their latest summer sale video because, remember, it didn't feature any of the RAZBAM products. Did I see the MiG-19 in that? I don't know. Either way, it led to a lot of vitriol, fighting, and ED shut down the comment section for the latest summer sale video, which they've never had to do in the past for a summer sale video, as far as I'm aware. And that, of course, then led to more speculation that ED's gagging everyone, which must clearly be a sign of their complicit guilt in all of this. They don't want us to discuss these issues because it makes them look bad. and therefore must mean that the summer sale is a last-ditch effort to fleece as much money from us in order to pay the money that they owe RAZBAM and the employees working on the F-15E, or maybe it's to help them avoid insolvency because of this whole issue. Now, I'm being very facetious here, deliberately, okay? And so I have to be careful how I tackle this without contributing to any of the hysteria, or as one commentator described it on my channel earlier this week when I published the link to the forum discussion that I'm referring to with regards to Nine Line and Big Nui, drama farming, right? What a great comment. What a great phrase. I haven't heard this one before, drama farming. I like that term. So one aspect of the sale could merely be not RAZBAM, ED rewarding its loyal customers with some bonus discounts, recognizing this is an awful situation that we're in, that the community's in, everybody's losing, it's a PR nightmare, RAZBAM's losing sales, certainly. People are turning off their products, they're frustrated with the team, that's causing, all of this speculation, etc., etc. Are these products going to be viable? Why am I buying them? Why are they still in the store? Well, ED said that legally they can't remove them from the store right now because of contractual arrangements. So maybe this sale is just a way of saying, hey, we really apologize for all this shit that's going on. Here's some discounts, okay? And it makes economic sense, right? I used to work in sales. If you had a product that, wasn't moving, for example, you put it on sale, you make up for some of the loss of the actual price, the total price, by just sheer volume. It makes sense. People do it all the time in sales. And if you add on additional products, upsales, you are, again, recouping your losses by volume because you're selling other products in those bundles. And we talked about how you can save a lot of money on this channel in the past by buying a discounted module, and then you get a campaign that's cheap, and you get a map that you need to fly on that particular campaign. It's a great way of saving money. Why would you buy all those things full price? ED often has sales. It's a great way, like I said, to save a little bit of money and extend the life of your module if you've run out of things to do with it outside of campaigns and you've just been doing the training missions, etc., etc. Makes sense, right? It's good stuff. But I don't see it necessarily as other people do, that they're trying to gag us, they're trying to rip us off, they're trying to stave off bankruptcy. Maybe they need the money to pay the legal fees. That could be legit. But I don't see it as the woe is me kind of issue. I mean, the issue is frustrating. The issue is, and I'm not trying to change the way people feel, because I'm disappointed too. I think it's extremely disappointing. I love the F-15E. I think it's a fantastic aircraft. I think they did a tremendous amount of work on it. I think the Metal to Meshes work on the artwork and the way the exterior looks, the interior looks is fantastic work. Is it Gallinet who did the radar? He did the radar for the Mirage 2000. Fantastic. Not so said in the forum chat actually that Gallinet is willing, if he gets paid, to come back and work on the radar. So, there's hope. There's slivers of hope in all of this, but there's also a lot of uncertainty, which I think helps create this frustration. And we just don't have answers to how long this is going to take. And the longer it goes on, as I said previously a few weeks ago, when I first raised this counter discussion, I'm trying to have productive discussion on it, the potential for bugs is going to creep in. The game continues to move on. The patches introduce new things, and these modules are sitting in limbo. Some of them, there's work being done on the Mirage, which is good. But yeah, there is a reality that potentially the modules become unsupported in such a way that they don't function properly in the game. There is a reality that this breaks RAZBAM and the ED relationship. It is possible, right? From a financial point of view, I don't think it's in their best interest, but there's no doubt that this is a PR disaster for both teams. There's little advantageous outcomes for either team if they're digging their heels in for one of the flagship modules like the F-15 to sit in sort of this purgatory, e-purgatory if you like, and a state of limbo while the two teams are in conflict. Our best hope then is that they're able to ratify in some way, shape or form. I think RAZBAM's got a lot of work to do to rebuild trust in its brand, and I suspect, based on a lot of the comments that are being made, that customers are going to be very, very cautious about early access products in the future, particularly from third-party teams. So there's a lot of learning. I think the other third-party teams are going to be able to take advantage of this a little bit the longer this goes on, because their products are going to attract the eye. And if they can deliver top-notch products in a way that provoke confidence in the community to purchase them, whether they be early access, like Polychop, who had said flat out, we're not offering an early access. This will be mission complete, which I think was a very smart move, even though it came on the heels of the very successful, or popular at least, Phantom 2 module. That was a smart move, because then you're not offering a half-finished product, if you like, or an incomplete product with an upfront price. It's not being discounted necessarily, or is not as... let me rephrase that. You're offering a product, even though it's at an early access discount, but still is largely feature incomplete. So that was a smart move on their part, I think. They've offered a product that we can use in-game, and it's largely functional. We're not going to expect huge updates. The opposite of what we saw basically with the Chinook, which is, hey, we're giving you this, but there's still a large list of things that need to be complete. And so I think the community is rightfully pointing out, hey, we want more feature complete. And the challenge, of course, is that may mean some modules take longer to develop. They're not going to be introduced early on, and we're going to have to wait for them to be worked on behind the scenes before they get injected in the game. So, swings and roundabouts, as we say back home, a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. Column B, what are you going to get? How are you going to offset all these things? What kinds of features is the community expecting to see? And that's for ED, I think, probably to listen to, and I think the other third-party teams watching. We saw that with Heapler, who said, hey, module's not ready. We've got some problems with our interface. It's just causing crashes. We didn't expect that. We're seeing some issues with some systems and field testing. And they made the smart move of delaying it about a month or so. As frustrating as that was, it was the right call. So yeah, lots of really interesting ramifications from this. But again, we'll see how things develop. I'm hopeful that it can be resolved. The longer it goes on, the more it's going to cause the gnashing of teeth, and the more frustrated people are going to be. And I think people are going to vote with their wallets. They're going to turn away from some RAZBAM products, and they're going to demand refunds, which they're entitled to do. And ED is accommodating that to a greater or lesser extent. So stay tuned. Let me know what you think.
351, Magic, call when you're taking your turn to establish your holding.
351. Almost ready. We are climbing now 30,000 feet away from the Pablos.
Heads up, Pablo performance overhead. You just got 1,000 feet high. I'm waiting for you to disable separation before I can give you your climb.
351 is visual.
On a separate note, and a good one, I did chat with one of the developers of the South Atlantic map yesterday, just very briefly in Discord, just via text. Remember, it comes under the umbrella of a RAZBAM product, but the map team is separate from the aircraft modules, and they're not subject to that embargo that we've seen. This is a single dude who's been working on the maps for many, many years now. He has done a tremendous amount of work on that map recently, which we should see in the next patch drop. This is going to feature a full set of custom normals, he told me, which is going to vastly improve the map based on the snippets that he's shown. He told me that all of the map blocks have been revamped, and this is going to improve ground appearance, so stay tuned for when that drops on the next patch. Hopefully, really exciting stuff. It's a great map, and it struggled a little bit when it was released. It was mixed reaction to it. It was very, very ambitious what they did with the map based on the size and the restraints and limitations of the software development kit at that point. So the improvements, I think, are going to be beneficial for everyone. So again, look forward to that. Now, lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about flight periphery equipment, which has exploded in recent years. However, one aspect that has been missing has been the effective implementation of force feedback, which looks like it's coming back to flight equipment, but it's been largely dead. Like I said, it's been alive and well in racing simulation, but less so in flight equipment. There are some niche examples of low volume but pretty high price pieces of equipment around, but it looks like mainstream examples that don't break the bank are few and far between. Now, price point I can't comment on yet, but MOZA Racing revealed a true force feedback base for flight simulation. It's known as the AB9 base. Not a particularly flashy name, but this looks like it could fill the void. Now, cleverly, they do make their own joystick, throttle, and the pedals are planned, apparently. Those are coming in the near future, but more importantly, it will support some third-party joysticks like Logitech. So this is a dream come true for many of us, as some of those over-the-counter force feedback systems, like I said, haven't really been seen for decades. There's an interesting video on this topic and the reasons for that, which I didn't actually know about, but I'll post a link in the description below to Flight Dojo's video. He's a real pilot, and he discussed this in a video called What Happened to Force Feedback Flight Sticks. Some of this proprietary hardware, if you like, is subject to copyright restrictions by the sounds of things. So it's actually a lot more complex than I realized, but the good news is that with the growth in PC power and the ability of software companies like Eagle Dynamics to produce games like DCS World, Microsoft Flight Simulator, by Asobo and Microsoft, that ability to model realistic flight simulation has boomed for periphery equipment, and that market has really taken off. No pun intended. So I'm excited about what MOZA has done here. I'd love to get my hands on a piece of this equipment. We'll see if they, maybe I'll reach out to them, see if they'll let me have one. But for now, we'll just have to watch other people's videos, and I'm waiting to see if there's a price point on this and whether that's a feasible option to purchase. So stay tuned for more information on that. All right, well, like I said, puns aside, that brings us to the end of another SITREP, a long one, not without controversy, of course. Hopefully we can stop talking about that issue for the RAZBAM thing in the near future, but let's carry on flying in the meantime. Enjoy some of the fantastic sales from Eagle Dynamics, and let's get ramped up for the Chinook, Afghanistan, Phantom 2, and the Kiowa, which have been brilliant. And we can get to touring the mountains of South Atlantic, Kola, and hopefully Afghanistan here in the near future. That'll do. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. This is Prickly Hedgehog out. Cheers.
2969, Rancho. Reaching Ocean 9. Yeah, Ocean 5.
Your navigation is proper to holding.
Is Pablo clear to descend?
161, 84, energy is clear for the descent.